If a camera hadn't been recording, no one would believe what this German Shepherd did for a baby. A terrified mother demanded the dog be removed forever. But in just 10 minutes, one moment of danger would reveal a truth so powerful it shattered every fear she ever carried. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. A soft rain drifted across the backyard, tapping gently against the kitchen windows. Amy Walker stood near the sink, her hands resting on the cool edge of the counter. She was 35, light-skinned, her dark brown hair tied low behind her neck, wearing a cream knit sweater and blue jeans. There was a stillness in her eyes, the kind that comes from many sleepless nights. She watched the gray sky above the trees, but her thoughts were turned inward, toward a memory she wished she could bury. Behind her, the faint sounds of baby toys clinking on the wooden floor made her shoulders tense. She didn't look back. She didn't dare. Not yet. The baby, little Emma, sat on a pink blanket in the living room, soft-faced, fair-skinned, barely 1 year old. She tapped plastic blocks together, humming in that innocent way children do when the world is still a gentle place. And just a few feet away, stretched on the rug, was Rex, a 5-year-old German Shepherd with thick black and tan fur and calm amber eyes. He watched the baby in long, quiet breaths, his body still except for the faint twitch of one ear. To anyone else he looked peaceful, protective even. But to Amy he was a shadow from her past, a reminder of teeth and screams and a childhood afternoon that had followed her into motherhood. She whispered into the empty air as if the rain might carry her words away. "Mark, I can't do this anymore." Mark Walker entered from the hallway, wiping his hands on the side of his gray t-shirt. He was 36, lean, with short brown hair and a gentle stubble along his jaw. His voice carried a steady warmth, the kind of tone that made people trust him even before they knew him. "What happened now?" he asked softly, though he already sensed the answer. He always did. He followed her gaze toward the living room, where Rex lifted his head slightly, as if acknowledging the conversation without intruding. Amy's voice trembled. He's watching her again, every second, every breath she takes. Mark stepped closer, his tone low and careful. He watches her because he cares, because he knows she's little. Amy shook her head. That's not what the doctor said. Her mind replayed the warning, the sterile smell of the clinic, the doctor adjusting her glasses, saying in a firm, professional tone, "Never leave a baby alone with a big dog, not ever." The words had carved themselves into Amy's bones. And then there was the older memory, the girl she once knew, a neighbor's child, bitten in a swirl of claws and fear. Amy had only been 10, but she still remembered the blood on the sidewalk, the way adults yelled, the way the dog was dragged away. She had not been the same since. And now she had a child of her own to lose. Mark exhaled, rubbing his thumb along the edge of the counter. "Amy, Rex isn't that dog. He's never hurt anyone." Amy faced him fully now, and the pain in her eyes was sharp. "You don't see what I see?" He follows her. He stares at her. He barely sleeps. That's not normal. Rex, hearing the rising tension, slowly pushed himself upright. He didn't move toward them. He only lifted his head, ears pricked, amber eyes steady and gentle. Emma giggled and slapped her hands on the floor. Rex's gaze softened, but the movement only made Amy flinch. Her breath broke. "I want him out, Mark. Today." The room fell silent except for the rain and the soft rattle of toys. Mark looked at Rex, then at Emma, then back at the woman he loved. His heart felt pulled in two directions. He had raised Rex from a 3-month-old pup, rescued from a family that had fallen apart after tragedy. A little girl had once adored Rex. Mark had seen photos. Then the accident happened, and the dog had been passed along like a piece of blame no one wanted to hold. That sorrow still lived in Rex's eyes. Mark had always sensed it, even if Amy never noticed. He spoke quietly. "I know you're scared, but you're wrong about him." Amy's jaw tightened. "Then prove it, Mark, or he leaves." The finality of her words settled heavily in the kitchen. Mark felt the weight of them, heavy as the storm clouds outside. He glanced once more at Rex, who lowered his head again, as if understanding more than any dog should. Mark nodded at last. "All right," he said, his voice steady but bruised. "If proof is what you need, then we'll find it." And somewhere deep inside the quiet of that rain-filled morning, he hoped the truth would set all of them free. Morning light drifted through thin curtains, pale and cold like a memory half forgotten. Mark Walker stood in the small hallway outside the living room, holding the tiny black camera in his hands. 36 years old, lean, with short brown hair and a stubble that softened his tired face. His gray T-shirt clung slightly to his shoulders, still damp from the sweat of an argument he wished had never happened. He listened to the quiet tapping of Emma's toys and felt the weight of a decision heavier than anything he had expected in fatherhood. For a moment, he closed his eyes. The house smelled of warm wood and morning coffee left untouched. Somewhere deeper inside, he felt a trembling mixture of fear and hope. Fear of losing Rex and hope that the truth would show itself kindly. Amy Walker watched him from the kitchen doorway. 35, her dark brown hair tied low, her cream sweater soft against her skin. But her eyes held a storm. Not anger, something older, more fragile. She folded her arms to steady herself. Her voice came out thin. "Just set it up, Mark." He nodded, though his heart resisted. 10 minutes, he said quietly, repeating his own promise. "If anything happens, I'll take him." Amy looked away. She didn't want the burden of being right. She only wanted her daughter safe. The doctor's warning echoed in her chest like a slow bruise. Never leave a baby alone with a big dog. Yet even as she recalled it, she felt a small sting of guilt for the way Rex had lowered his eyes that morning, like he understood every word. Mark walked toward the old bookshelf where the router sat humming softly. He knelt on the wooden floor, the boards creaking under his weight. As he plugged in the camera, something on the router screen flickered, a small folder marked saved clips. He frowned. He didn't remember placing it there. The folder opened with a soft click. A line of thumbnails appeared. Quiet moments, dim lighting, familiar shapes. He tapped the first clip. The living room appeared, late at night. Emma in her tiny pastel pajamas, rolling in her sleep. Rex, bigger than the couch behind him, stepped close. Not too close. Just enough. He bent his head and nudged a fallen blanket back over her small body. Then he lay down beside the crib, eyes half open, breath slow, keeping watch. Mark swallowed hard. He tapped the next clip. A plastic truck, a hard one, rolled across the floor, straight toward Emma's head. Rex moved quickly, placing his body in the way. The truck hit his side and bounced away harmlessly. Emma giggled without even waking fully. Rex sat still for a long moment, ears alert. Mark opened the third clip. Emma crawled toward the corner of the coffee table, its edge sharp like an unwelcome truth. Rex stepped in front of her, gently pressing her away with his muzzle. A patient shepherd guiding a child who did not understand danger yet. Mark's breath broke. His hand shook slightly against the edge of the shelf. These were not accidents. These were hours and days of quiet protection no one had noticed. No one except Rex. He closed the folder, feeling something inside him tighten, then loosen, as if he had stumbled upon a secret love letter written in actions rather than words. Part of him wanted to go straight to Amy and show her everything. But another part whispered that the truth meant more when discovered, not delivered. He rose slowly, wiped his palms on his khaki pants, and turned toward the living room. Emma sat in the center of the rug, her little pink socks bright against the woven pattern. She clapped softly, delighted by the dust motes floating through the sunlight. Rex lay a few feet away, his black and tan fur catching the light like old gold. His amber eyes lifted toward Mark with a gentle patience, an unspoken trust that felt almost human in its depth. Mark stepped closer and placed the camera on the high shelf, its small red light flickering to life. He whispered, "All right, buddy, just 10 minutes?" Rex didn't move. Only his ears twitched at the sound of Emma's small laughter. Amy entered, her breath uneven. She glanced at Rex, then at Emma. There was fear in her, yes, but also something softer, something that wondered if she had misread a pair of devoted eyes. The rain outside had eased, leaving a quiet that felt like a held breath. Mark stood beside her. "Let's go," he said gently. They stepped into the kitchen, leaving the living room behind. The door clicked softly. The camera watched. Rex watched. And in the stillness that followed, something wordless moved through the house, like an old truth rising to the surface, slow and shining. A hush settled over the house, the kind that makes every small sound feel larger than it should. In the kitchen, Amy stood beside the counter, her fingers curled around the edge as if it might hold her steady. She was 35, the soft cream of her sweater catching the pale morning light, her dark hair tied low behind her neck. She stared at the phone in her hands, watching the live camera feed with a breath held too long. Beside her, Mark hovered close, lean and quiet, his stubble-shadowed face drawn into lines of worry he tried not to show. The wooden floor beneath them felt colder than usual. Maybe it was the weight of what they didn't say. Maybe it was the fear creeping into both their hearts, though in different shapes. On the screen, Emma sat in the middle of the rug, 1 year old, small as a question mark. Her pink socks brushed the carpet fibers as she tapped the air with her tiny hands. And there, a few feet away, was Rex. The 5-year-old German shepherd lay low, black and tan fur rising softly with each breath. His amber eyes were fixed on the child, steady and alert. Then something shifted. It was subtle at first, a faint tightening along his back, a twitch of one ear flattening against his head. But to a dog like Rex, every small motion carried meaning. His muscles pulled taut, his body bracing like a door about to take the weight of a storm. Amy felt her throat tighten. "He's doing it again," she whispered, more to herself than to Mark. Mark leaned closer. "No, that's not fear. That's warning." But Amy didn't hear the difference. She had memories of teeth and screams stitched into her childhood. Every instinct screamed danger. Her eyes glistened, not with anger now, but with something closer to heartbreak, as if she wished she could be wrong, yet didn't trust herself enough to believe it. Then, from the very edge of the camera frame, a dark round shape rolled into sight. Slow, mechanical, unaware. The vacuum. A faint hum vibrated from the screen speaker, a low grind of aging gears. The machine moved with a stubborn purpose, following its programmed pattern across the room. But today, its path cut straight toward Emma. Mark's chest tightened. He remembered the first time the vacuum had caught Rex's fur, how the dog had yelped, panicked, backing into a wall while the brushes tangled into his coat. Mark had seen the fear in the dog's eyes, the way he trembled afterward like something deep inside him had been shaken loose. And now the machine rolled toward the one thing Rex would fear losing more than his own comfort. Emma giggled, reaching out a hand toward the approaching shape. To her, it was just another toy, another small joy in a world with no sharp edges. She lifted both hands, clapping lightly, her smile wide and unguarded. Rex rose instantly, not with aggression, not with anger, but with purpose. The kind of purpose that comes from love forged in silence. His paws pressed into the carpet. His body lowered, his head aligned with the machine, every muscle clenched, a living shield readying itself. His amber eyes narrowed, his ears flattened tight against his skull. A soft growl rumbled in his chest, low, trembling, not meant to frighten the child, but to gather courage against the memory of pain. He stepped forward, one slow, careful movement at a time. In the kitchen, Amy's breath broke. "He's going toward her. Mark, he's—" "No," Mark said softly, his voice deepening. "He's going between." He could see it clearly now, the shape of Rex's intent. A dog does not brace his legs like that to attack. A dog does not shield his body unless he knows something the humans have not yet seen. And for the first time, Mark felt a flicker of something inside Amy shift, a tiny fracture in the wall of fear she had carried for so long. She watched Rex, really watched him, and saw not hunger or threat, but devotion as quiet as morning snowfall. The vacuum hummed closer. Emma reached farther. Her fingers grazed the air, her laugh bright and trusting, and Rex took the final step. His body angled fully between the child and the machine, his frame stiff, ready, his breath deepened, his tail stilled. He stood like a sentinel shaped by loss and love, driven not by instinct alone, but by memory. A memory of a little girl he once couldn't save. Amy pressed a hand over her mouth. Tears gathered at her lashes, shimmering but not yet falling. Mark placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "He's trying," he whispered. The words settled between them like a promise, quiet, fragile, real. On the phone's screen, danger moved closer, and Rex stood firm, letting the past and present meet in the space of a heartbeat. A wind brushed softly against the house, carrying the faint scent of wet earth. In the kitchen, the wooden clock ticked with a slow, steady rhythm. Amy stood frozen, her hand pressed to her chest. She wore her cream sweater, now clinging to her shoulders as if trying to hold her together. Her dark brown hair trembled where it touched her cheek. On the counter beside her, the phone screen glowed with the live camera feed. She stared into it with eyes wide and unblinking, pupils shrinking in fear. Mark stood slightly behind her, his breath silent, the stubble on his jaw catching the dim light. He watched the same screen, helpless, feeling each second stretch thin like a thread ready to snap. On the feed, the vacuum rolled forward, slow at first, then with a jittering stutter from old gears. Its round body shifted left, then right, before latching onto the soft fabric of Emma's pastel onesie. The baby squealed in surprise. Her tiny body pulled forward as the machine tugged. She lost her balance. Her small hands reached out, searching for something to steady her. Rex moved before either parent could breathe. The German Shepherd lunged with a grace born not from instinct alone, but from memory and love. His black and tan fur rippled across the frame. His paws hit the rug with a dull thud. His body wrapped around Emma in one swift, silent motion. He slid beneath her, catching her weight before she could strike the floor. Then he lowered his body fully, shielding her with the entire breadth of his frame, muscles contracting under the strain, breath forcing through clenched fear. Amy choked on a cry. "Oh my God, Mark!" Her voice cracked like thin glass. Mark felt the sound of it in his bones. "I know," he whispered, though he barely heard himself. On the screen, Rex braced. The vacuum tugged harder, its brushes tangled deeper into the fabric near Emma's hip. Rex grunted, a sound thick with fear but anchored by determination. His body trembled. His ears pressed flat against his skull as old pain resurfaced. Pain from the day the same machine had trapped him, dragging his fur until he yelped in terror. Yet now, instead of backing away, he pushed closer. He bore the force meant for her. Rex lowered his head, teeth bared not in anger, but in resolve. He nudged the vacuum once, testing its resistance. Then, with a powerful thrust of his muzzle, he struck it sideways. The machine jerked violently, wheels squealing, its sensors flickered. A sputter, a click, and then silence. The vacuum died where it lay. But Rex did not rise. His body remained curved protectively over Emma, his back forming a warm, trembling roof around her. His breath was heavy. His ribs rose and fell fast, then slower, then steadier, as if he were convincing himself that the danger had truly passed. Emma, still pressed beneath him, reached up with small fingers and curled them around the thick fur at his neck. She rested her cheek against his side, nuzzling close. Her tiny sigh brushed his skin like a whisper of gratitude. Rex stayed perfectly still. Amy's legs gave out. She dropped to her knees on the kitchen floor, one hand gripping the cabinet handle for balance. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Quiet at first, then as freely as rain. She had imagined many versions of this moment over the last weeks, moments where Rex was the danger, where his size, his strength, his eyes meant harm. But none of those imagined monsters had ever looked like this. The creature on the screen was not a threat, but a guardian, a soul shaped by past sorrow, now choosing a different ending, one where a child would not be lost. Not this time. Mark reached for her shoulder, his voice low and unsteady. "He saved her, Amy." She nodded, though her breath trembled. He saved our baby. Her words dissolved. The truth filled the space where her fear had lived. On the screen, Emma's hand softened in Rex's fur. The German shepherd closed his eyes briefly, as if savoring the weight of her trust. His body relaxed just enough to show he was still alert, still ready, still hers to protect. And in the quiet kitchen, as the wind pressed gently against the siding of the house, Amy placed her palm over her heart. Something inside her broke and healed in the same breath. Evening settled softly over the house, the last light sliding across the walls like a quiet farewell. The door to the living room opened so quickly that it struck the wall with a hollow thump. Mark moved first, his lean body crossing the room in long, urgent strides. His gray t-shirt was damp with sweat, his breath short and uneven. Amy followed close behind, her cream sweater brushing the air as she nearly stumbled forward, her dark hair falling from its tie. The wooden floor, warm under their feet all day, felt impossibly cold now. And yet, in the center of the rug, there was stillness. Rex stood before them, the 5-year-old German shepherd with black and tan fur still trembling lightly from the strain. He lowered his head toward Emma, who was seated safely beneath him. His amber eyes held a tired intelligence, as if he had measured every danger imaginable and borne it alone. He sniffed gently along the sleeve of her onesie, checking the fabric, her skin, her warmth. Only when he was satisfied that she was unhurt did he release a slow breath through his nose. Emma reached out, touching his muzzle with tiny fingers. Her voice came out soft and curious, a small hum that carried no fear. Amy's knees buckled, and she fell beside them. Her hands flew to her daughter, then to Rex, touching the thick fur of his neck. Her body shook with sobs she had held back for weeks, sobs shaped by guilt, fear, and the sudden collapse of everything she thought she knew. "Rex," her voice cracked, "I'm so sorry. I was wrong." The words were not loud, but they carried the weight of truth. Rex tilted his head, his breath warm against her skin. He didn't understand the words, but he understood tone, understood the trembling sorrow in her voice and the way her hand curled into his fur, like a plea. Mark knelt beside them, his movements slow, almost reverent. He rested a hand on Rex's back, feeling the dog's ribs rise and fall beneath his palm. His eyes were rimmed with red, the lines on his face deeper now from the fear he had swallowed. "Buddy," he murmured, "you're the only reason she's safe." Rex blinked once, steady and calm, as if accepting an old responsibility that had simply waited for him to show it. "You're staying here," Mark whispered. "Forever." The room seemed to exhale at those words, as though even the walls had waited to hear them. Later that night, the house grew quiet again. The shapes of the day softened into shadows. The storm outside faded into a faint patter of leftover raindrops sliding down the gutters. Amy walked into the nursery with Emma cradled against her chest, her heartbeat still a little fast. Mark stood behind her, leaning against the doorframe, his arms crossed loosely. The soft glow of the nightlight spilled gold across the crib's wooden bars. Amy lowered Emma gently into the crib. The baby shifted once, then settled. Her small hand slipped through the slats, reaching for something unseen. Rex padded into the room on silent paws. His thick coat brushed lightly against the doorframe as he entered. He looked older by the soft lamplight, older but peaceful, carrying the kind of strength that grows only from loss and love. Without being called, he moved to the side of the crib and lay down. The boards creaked under his weight. He set his head just beneath Emma's reaching hand. Her fingers found him instantly. Amy covered her mouth with one hand. Tears rose again, not like the frantic ones from earlier, but slower, warmer, the kind that come when a heart heals in places it didn't know were broken. Mark slid an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. They stood together in the doorway, watching their daughter rest her tiny palm on Rex's head. The dog closed his eyes. And in that quiet gesture, there was no fear left, no doubt, only trust, only belonging. A family, complete at last. Sometimes in the quiet years of our lives, when illness, sorrow, and loneliness sit beside us, a story like this reminds us that love still finds its way. If this touched your heart, please share it, leave a comment, and subscribe so we can walk through these days together. May God watch over you, bring you comfort, and fill your home with gentle peace.